the tide is turning, folks, and one way to know that is to compare and contrast the tone of Chuck Schumer now versus shortly after October 7th. Here's Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor advocating for what seems to me like regime change in Israel. Schumer turning on Netanyahu here.
Fourth major obstacle to peace is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. As a lifelong supporter of Israel, it has become clear to me the Netanyahu coalition no longer fits the needs of Israel after October 7th. The world has changed radically since then, and the Israeli people are being stifled right now by a governing vision that is stuck in the past. 5 months into this conflict, it is clear that Israelis need to take stock of the situation and ask, must we change course? At this critical juncture, I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel.
Wow. Now, Russell's made this point in the past, and it's a very good one, that a lot, and I paraphrased it when I tweeted this video out, you know, a lot of liberal Zionists, quote unquote, liberal Zionists, like to use Netanyahu as a convenient scapegoat to sort of pin all of the crimes of Israel on this one guy, when obviously the point that Russell has made, I think is a good one, is that the founding of Israel made it inevitable that someone like Netanyahu would rise to the top and dominate their politics for decades. Netanyahu has been a prominent figure within Israel since the 80s. He was their representative to the UN starting in 1984. So he has actually been a prominent figure in Israel for the majority of its existence as a state. So obviously, he is the convenient fall guy for a guy like Chuck Schumer, who is a die-in-the-wool Zionist who's never going to come out and actually criticize the very conception of Israel, right, which was racist from day one. That being said, though, for him to come out and advocate for basically Netanyahu's ouster, pretty significant considering here he is just a few months ago at the March for Israel, which I like to call Hallapalooza. And Russell, what was the Million Murderer March? That's a good one too. The Million Murderer March. Here's Chuck Schumer just a few months ago.
Israel, we in America have your back. And we will not rest until you get all the assistance you need. We will not rest until you get the assistance you need. And today all of you are here showing we will not hide in the face of adversity in America and in Israel. Am Yisrael Chai. 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 The people Israel here in America and in Israel, the Jewish people will live forever.
Okay, now you look at him. Yeah, you look at him talking like that there versus just a few months later. I have a feeling if you had this same march today, you wouldn't get that kind of turnout because people are seeing,
people who went to that.
I think we fucked up a little bit here, which is what Caitlin Johnston warned you guys. I mean, she was talking in the context of social media, but she warned you, she said, watch what you say, because in short time, it's not going to look good. So I think we have reached the phase of this war where, once again, the anti-war left proven right once again. It took a few years for us to be proven right in the public mind when we protested against the Iraq war. It took us a year and change with Ukraine. It took us about, 4 or 5 months now that this guy is not denouncing Israel, but he's denouncing Netanyahu. Quite the tonal shift from just a few months ago where he's leading these chants.
Well, something else I often say is people who are populist, and I won't even say left at this point. If you're just populist, which I would say part of that is being detached from corporate media brainwashing. It means having a Cassandra syndrome, because you're always right 2 years ahead of when the media will admit what you were saying was true. And it's not because we're all geniuses. It's because we're not brainwashed. It's obvious. It's not hard to see where these things are going. Right. You don't have to be von Clausewitz to understand that Ukraine can't beat Russia over time. Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine, Russia. Doesn't take a brilliant strategic mind to figure that out.
Doesn't take a brilliant mind to say, hey, Iraq didn't do 9/11. Why would we invade there?
Right.
That doesn't make much sense. You were a traitor if you said that in fall of 2002, winter of 2003. And 3 years later, when the Republicans got clobbered in the midterms, it's because why? America's turned against the Iraq war. Shame you couldn't think of that earlier. Could have saved a few 100,000 people from being incinerated.
And speaking of traitorous behavior, I've pointed this out in the past when there's the very infamous clip where Schumer, with great disdain, talks about how the opposition doesn't believe in the Torah. People who don't believe in Israel don't believe in the Torah. Now, I want you to imagine for a second an adherent to any other religion who is a public politician saying something like that in public, but they don't believe in Jesus. Oh my God, the libs would be having a field day with that for a week. Oh, they'd
be right. Like, so no one should make those biblical
theocratic. Of course, they'd be right. Yeah. If you, God forbid, you had Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib say, but they don't believe in Allah. They don't believe in Muhammad. Can you imagine what they would do with that? So why is it okay for the fucking head of the Senate to be offering that kind of a religious basis and expressing absolute contempt for people who don't subscribe to his religious views?
The fact that he has come around this far just shows where reality has taken him. I mean, that's just where reality has led. And now, I'm not surprised that the Democrats want Netanyahu gone at this point, because the Democrats
want to scapegoat him.
Well, they want to scapegoat him, and also they have an election to win in 8 months that at this rate they're not going to, right? And so they need to get this guy under control yesterday. I mean, it's probably too late, but if they have any chance at this, they're going to have to stop him before he invades Rafah, because once he invades Rafah, that's it. At that point, you cannot claim that you saved anybody, and they're not going to be able to say that. And in my opinion, even if they do get him to call off the Rafah invasion, which they won't, it's still too late to justify supporting Joe Biden. 30,000 dead is just an obscene figure. Even if it stops right now, which it won't. Even if the violence stops right now, they're saying if you stop the violence now, thousands of kids would still die of hunger in the coming weeks. And so that ship has sailed from my point of view. From the Democrats' point of view, they know they are bleeding support every day this goes on. And Netanyahu, he's an obstacle to peace, sure. In the Democrats' eyes, he's also an obstacle to their own victory, because they know that unless they can either get this guy to cooperate or get rid of him, they're done. They're done. At that point, Donnie Bloodbath Trump takes over, as they say now.
I thought it was a democracy.
Right.
So Netanyahu is the choice of the Israeli people, right? So he's not an aberration. He's a reflection of that society. You can't pin it on him. He didn't get installed in a coup.
Right.
He's elected multiple times, across decades. So
like I said, he's been a prominent Israeli political figure for the majority of its history as a state.
Right. So you can't disown Netanyahu as an aberration. He was inherent to what the Israeli state is.
Yes, this is his third stint as PM. He keeps coming back.
Yep. 75% of Israelis in a poll support going into Rafah.
Yep.
Okay. He is not an aberration. He represents them. Right. It's a democracy. You keep saying it's a democracy. Well, own it.
Please clap.